Alright guys, so today I would like to talk to you a little bit about one of those dreaded repairs for consumers and technicians alike, and that is black tanks. Nobody wants to change a black tank. Nobody wants to deal with a black tank that's having a problem. So today what I'm going to do is walk you through what it takes to change one. We're going to do a complete removal and a complete installation of a black tank so you can see what a technician goes through, or maybe learn how to do it yourself if you're trying to save some money and be the do-it-yourselfer and put a tank in your own RV. Either way, I'll walk you through all the steps necessary, and you'll see it is a dreaded task, but it can be done. Today, one of them is here at this joint, and then clearly we've got some leaks at the top of the tank, and that's indicated by the rust coming out. There should not be water coming out from on top of this tank here. So that's two places, and then the third place that we have a leak is right here at this glued fitting coming out of the tank. So we're going to have to replace all of this plumbing from here to the valve and the tank itself, and we're going to pull it completely out, put a new tank, new plumbing, and then leak test it in this video. There are several different variations of tank mounting systems. In this case, we clearly have Tek screws coming down from the top of this cross member, which is steel, and that's holding these galvanized straps, one on either side, and then these bands are wrapped underneath, and exactly the same configuration on the other side. So obviously we're going to need to drop the straps in order to drop the tank. The cross member is attached to the trailer frame via two 3/8 Tek screws, and then we have a group of 12-volt DC wiring and some chassis grounds passing through this hole. I believe we're going to be able to leave this hole and detach these chassis grounds and drop this cross member down far enough to work here. Now as we move to the off-door side on the cross member here, you'll notice we do have a LP gas line, a supply water line, and some more DC wiring. I still believe if we move this stuff out of the way without disconnecting or cutting it, that we'll have enough leeway to move this cross member out of the way so that the tank can freely come out of the RV. So just using a small pry bar, we're able to loosen the cross member from between the frame rails. And so it's hanging here now, which is going to give us access to these two 5/16 Tek screws, and we can remove the straps from the belly of the tank, which will allow it to drop. Then we'll take our interior piping off and drop it out the bottom of the trailer. We'll be able to insert the new one. The next thing that needs to be removed and taken into consideration are the tank sensor wires. These are 3/8 nuts. There should be 4 of them on one end or the other of the tank. Occasionally they'll be on the side of the tank. Simply loosen the nuts and remove the eyelets. Don't forget this step or the tank will fall and pull the wires out. So on the top of every black tank, there should be at least 2 fittings. One would be your inlet from the stool, and the second would be a vent pipe that lets the air rise out of the tank as it fills with liquids and solids. So first we'll remove the stool. RV stools are very basic. much like a household. So we have 2 bolts on each side. They're generally 13 millimeter, ½ inch, 9/16, or 14 millimeter, depending on your model. And then you have 1 water line hooked up in the back. Simply remove the water line, remove the 2 closet flange bolt nuts, and the toilet will lift right off. As you witnessed, sometimes removing a stool is a messy situation. In this case, this is a new RV, so we just had a lot of water. It's important that you clean the water up immediately. We do not want water sitting up underneath these walls. It will swell and destroy the paneling and trim and any surrounding wood. So it's very important for your customer or yourself, if you're doing your own black tank, that you get that water up immediately. Then you can move on to the next step, which I'd like to talk about. That would be the closet flange. That's what this part right here is. It's where your closet flange bolts come from and your closet flange gasket sits. There are different ways that these are put into tanks. Sometimes they're glued in, sometimes they're threaded in, and sometimes they're just pressed into a rubber grommet. So in order to find out which type you have, remove the screws and try to twist it. If it does not unthread, it's likely glued in and will have to be cut. This particular flange is in fact glued in. I know this because I'm pulling on it and it doesn't come out as if it were in a rubber grommet, and it does not spin as if it were threaded. I can also feel the tank itself moving up and down in the pressure from it as I pull on the closet flange. So this one will need to be cut. Let me show you how to do that. So my preferred method, which I understand may not be available to everyone that's trying to do this at a campground or at your house, but would be to use a pneumatic die grinder with a cutting wheel. This will fit down inside of here, and you can cut the closet flange off, allowing the pipe itself to be pulled through the floor. And just simply stick it down inside. And cut around in a circle, and then it'll pop up like a donut, and you can go underneath and pull it down. By removing the closet flange gasket, I was able to go underneath the trailer, pull down on the tank, and see on top of it with a flashlight to determine the vent location. It was behind the converter box underneath the refrigerator. Right there. You can see it to the left, 1.5 inch ABS pipe. So we'll be cutting that off right there, and we'll be ready to drop our tank. Now that we've got the tank down and ready to come out, there's one last step. If your RV is equipped with a sewer flusher, let's see if I can get it. There we go, right here. It's a dedicated water line going into the tank with a nozzle. We couldn't access it while it was up there, so now I have access to remove it. This is just a clear rubber PVC hose. So I'm just going to cut that, I think, and release it. And now our tank is free to come on out of the RV. Alright, the next step is to remove these tank sensors. We're actually going to reuse them as long as they're usable. Being new, they should be. Just remove the outer nut and loosen the inner nut. It's 3/8 of an inch. Don't take the nut all the way off because you don't want the sensor to fall in the tank. It gives you something to hang on to. So as far as the sewer flusher inlet goes, if you're not familiar with this term, this fitting is spun weld into the tank. In other words, the machine spun this piece of plastic fitting so quickly that it bonded and melted into the tank sidewall, so it cannot be removed and reused. Therefore, when we install our new one, we will need to pick up a sewer flusher kit, which basically consists of this. It's like a sprayer nozzle, and we will drill a hole this diameter, place it inside the tank, and use a strong sealant that bonds with the ABS around the outside and screw it into the sidewall. And that needs to sit for 24 hours before it has any pressure against it. Next, we're going to drill our inlet openings. So for the stool closet flange, we have a 3-inch, and for the vent over here, we have a 1.5 inch. So the way these work is you drill your hole the diameter of the base, and then it's got an upper and lower lip. Now the manufacturers claim that this doesn't require any sealant, that it's self-sealing. Me personally, I prefer to put some Sikaflex into the gap before installing it. So without further ado, let's drill some holes. Another important tip that you should definitely pay attention to is when you drill these holes for your inlets, do not let the disc fall down inside of the tank out of your hole saw. Obviously, when you go to drain your tank, this will plug up the 3-inch valve, and then you got a whole nother mess on your hands. So if it doesn't stay in the hole saw, retrieve it. You can just reach in and grab it, pull it out, and discard it. Discharge, check. 1.5 inch inlet, check. Sewer flusher, check. We're gonna go ahead and install this bad boy and let it sit overnight until about this time tomorrow, so all of our sealant can set up, and then we're gonna fill it up and test for leaks. Alright guys, so I know that it's easy, I know that it's convenient to use hose clamps in applications like this, where we're going to a barbed fitting with a flex hose. If you got any salt, man, if you're a long-time RV owner or a good technician, you're going to be familiar with what's called an Oetiker clamp. If you're a novice, let me introduce you to the Oetiker clamp. This is a band clamp. It does require a special tool to install. I'm going to go ahead and put it on here, and you should be using this. A hose clamp is just setting yourself up for failure, setting up your customers for failures, and they'll have to come back. That should never happen if you're a good tech. So let's clamp this on here and take a look at what that looks like. Inch-and-a-half vent pipe there, ready to go in its position, and our 3-inch inlet ready to go up through the bathroom floor to its position. So I'll simply push the bracket back into place, put the bolts in it, and we'll go inside and hook everything back up in the reverse order. Alright, so now that we're back inside, you can see that our grommet coming from our tank is almost dead center. And we're just going to take our closet flange, which is pre-built to fit, and slide it down inside of our grommet. And make sure your closet flange bolt slots are across from each other side to side. You don't want to get this crooked or your whole stool will be crooked. Just set that there and screw your closet flange gasket back to the floor. Fernco fitting, which has been acceptable in residential, commercial, and the recreational vehicle application for many years. Since it's a vent pipe, I'm feeling pretty good about it. Next thing we'll do is finish our discharge plumbing, and we'll be back tomorrow and leak test everything. Alright guys, this is we're getting close to the end now. This is one critical part that a lot of people rush through. Don't think it's that important, but I disagree. And that's in fact why we had to do this work. Part of the reason was we had two joints leaking. They either weren't primed properly or they weren't glued properly. So it's important that you prime both surfaces. So you want to do your female interior surface and you want to do your male exterior surface, and let that set up for a minute. What that does is it allows the ABS material to soften, and there's a chemical reaction. I'm not a scientist, but it helps the glue adhere and bond them together as one piece. My father was actually a plumber, and he recommended using it liberally, which I've always done, and I have almost no failures that I can remember in any of the PVC gluing or ABS gluing that I've done. So I'm going to go ahead and prime all of these, and then we're going to go underneath the trailer, glue everything together and get it in place, and then I'm going to go home. We're going to come back tomorrow and fill this tank up and flood it and make sure that it holds. Alright, this installation is complete. We're going to let this sit until tomorrow. We'll come back and leak test it, and we should be good to go. Alright guys, welcome back. It is day 2. We've let this tank sit and dry, and it's time to flood it. So we've got the gizmo in the toilet here. We're going to fill this tank completely up and make sure there aren't any leaks. Don't forget to monitor your monitor panel and make sure that your sensors are functioning after you've reinstalled them, and watch your levels increase from empty to full. That way your customer doesn't experience any issues with these sensors. Alright folks, the tank is completely full. We have no leaks up top or down below, which is fantastic. It's another successful installation. Folks, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and hit the bell. I'll have tons of content for RV tips and tricks, how-tos, and tech updates. Thanks for watching. See you next time.